audio was released, it was actually, in my view, it's actually more revealing than I thought it was, and not in a good way. Delay the game, can't do anything. Can't do anything. It's restarted, can't do anything. I mean, it really shows it for the moment that it actually was chaos in that VAR truck. Misinformation, misdirection, all sorts going on. So what needs to happen? Amidst the debate, of course, we have managers and we have players. What did Pep think?
They changed the job of the referees because now they don't take the decisions. The decisions are being made for the BAR, the important ones. But if you make a mistake and then BAR, after we have a problem. So I understand completely how upset must be Liverpool in that case. It could be another club, but the bosses on the referees will decide what we have to do, and we follow them. So I rely on the people, and they have to play as best as possible. I'm not a professional at that, and I'm not involved, and I don't care. I have to rely on the people there, but everyone knows they did a mistake, and Liverpool suffer big consequences of that, because in this type of games this is so important. But no worry, the consequences will dictate the players and the managers. They will have to find the system like the main roles are to be the players and the football and the game itself. In all the countries, not just here, in all the countries now, the referees in VAR are the leading roles. And the Oscar goes to, and they have to make a step back. So it's the players. And they have to, sometimes there are games like just being more humble and do it what they have to do, they will do it better. They will do it better.
Now, we have mixed emotions listening to that. Simon's having a giggle. I'm kind of looking in disbelief. I don't know what you think, Danny. They will have to find a system where the main roles are the players and the game itself. In all the countries, not just here, the referees and the VARs are the leading roles. And the Oscar goes to, they have to take a step back. I mean, the inference being they're getting beyond themselves. I mean, I don't know where you're going with that.
I knew this was coming. I knew this narrative was going to come at some point, that they were going to weaponise the argument that Howard Webb and the referees have decided that they're going to get hold of a little bit more of the culture of how referees are treated, how players behave, how the disposition and attitude of players that was building up last year with Bruno Fernandes, with Andy Robertson, with Jurgen Klopp. And I make no apologies for mentioning Jurgen Klopp, because Jurgen Klopp was the one that had the altercation with Paul Tierney, so it's not a case of me picking on Liverpool, just so people don't get that into their heads again. The bottom line is that I knew this argument was coming. How convenient to forget the reasons why VAR was introduced. The reasons why VAR was introduced was because people like Pep Guardiola refused to accept on-field decisions without endless criticism, and the necessity to be able to improve the refereeing, and the aid to improve the refereeing was VAR. How convenient that we weaponise the argument about the officials trying to regain some degree of respect and culture in the game where they're an authority on it, that he suddenly suggests that they're now the bosses and they've forgotten who the stars are. We all know the stars are. The reasons why you've got 40 minutes of injury time is because your stars roll around cheating the general public and diminishing the game in time wasting. The reasons why referees are being asked to exude more authority is because your players cheat and simulate. So all of these are a byproduct. So the absolute self-unawareness of this individual making these observations is staggering and is
you can't deny that,
of the
Danny,
bubble
can
of
you?
the world of football.
We're in this stage.
I'm disappointed
because you lot have got us to this stage.
I'm disappointed in his interview, in what he said. The reason I'm disappointed is because he uses the word humility, which is an insinuation of arrogance towards the official, so suggesting they're arrogant. Now, of course, in my time in football, there's always one or two who are a little bit arrogant. Of course, some of them will come across that way. Mike Dean was talking on your pod about it. It was his way of...
Yeah, about no look, yellow cards,
you know. So one or two maybe he's come across in his time that do come across a bit badly. I get that, but they're exceptional.
Yeah.
Do you know what the problem is, which I think he's mistaken here? It's the fear and trepidation of our officials now having to deal with the petulance of players and managers and getting them in line.
Danny.
It is. He's mistaking them having to deal with such petulance and stupidness.
Point. Yeah.
He's mistaking that for arrogance. All they're trying to do is implement the law to stop the nonsense, which we all agree with in this room.
I think we are agreed, though, that this is...
He's diminishing what the refereeing fraternity were trying to achieve, and I knew it was coming.
And it has come.
I've said it to you for the
It was a wonderful...
It
It was a great opportunity for Pep to speak positively and do some good with that conversation.
Having said that, Simon, and I've nothing against these guys, I don't know either of them, Does Howard Webb have a case to sack Darren England on VAR and his assistant Dan Cook?
I think he does, and I'm not doing this lightly or trying to be sensational about it. There, to my mind, there's a component of negligence and dereliction of duty in this instance. I'm not talking about his refusal to break protocol, but the fact of the matter is, unless Darren England could sit in front of me and say to me, give me a tangible, plausible reason how he managed to not understand what was going on in the game, I'm in the territory with saying, you're not fit for purpose. Not because I want to react to the baying mob, but because you look at it and say, this is not something you can explain away. If you can explain it to me, your headphones didn't work, there was a distraction in the room, something happened that gives me cause to believe that the key moment of a game when someone scored a bleeding goal, which is what a game about, you're not on it, you're not at it, you're not in tune. I'm not worried about the protocol breach that you wouldn't take. I can get to that with the cultural change that I want you referees to have balls. But this competency takes me into an area where I have to assume that you can't do your job.
I would be careful with some of the word and what you're saying, only because I think sacking is when this guy spent his life trying to be a good referee, and now they've been thrust into these VAR trucks and that.
No one's forced them.
I think there's an argument to suggest he doesn't go in the VAR anymore, but go and get on with your refereeing, you're what you're good at. Because they're two different things. And I don't think he should be taking away the chance of his livelihood because of this. I think
Danny,
he should be taking away his chance.
If you can't...
They're two different things,
you just made a case, Dan, of that the decisions should be driven to some extent by the VAR prompting the on-field referee to ask what's going on because they're in a less pressurised environment with less distractions.
Yeah.
So now we're saying that level of competency that's required in there is less of a competency required in the environment that you just said is more pressurised. So he's going to be worse in that environment, isn't he? If he can't make decisions in isolated situation where he's got less pressure on him, you're bringing yourself into the territory
because the reason
whether he has to be taken out of commission for 6 months and retrained and meet certain standards to come back into commission.
Maybe he deserves that
and
opportunity.
maybe he's got a suspension that involves
he's been stood down.
being assigned to I mean a proper suspension,
But if
not between 1 week. I mean assignation to a desk, desk duty of your police officer because you're not fit for purpose out on the roads.
I think it's a good point you made.
To a training thing that he meets standards to come back in again to be able to be. So he's gone back.
The only thing
he's either been sacked, which is a harsh outcome, and I know
it is because the levels of pressure you're talking about.
He's taken out of commission and completely and utterly retrained over a significant period of time, meet certain standards before he gets anywhere near either a football field or a VAR.
But although you're talking about the levels of pressure being equal, if not more, when you're reffing on a football pitch, that's what he's been trained to do and been doing all his life. This other situation, which is pressure, even though it's more.
Yeah, I'm just throwing back your argument.
No, I know, but the argument is you're comparing two things. One he's really new at, and one he's been doing a long time. He's failed in this one, so to sack him from both, I think would be harsh.
But he's a VAR specialist, isn't he?
There's no such thing, is there? They've only been at it 5 minutes.
But I mean, how long does it take for you to be? I mean, ultimately,
well, how long would you assume it would be before you'd call yourself a specialist in anything?
Depends how complex what I was looking at. If I was being trained from scratch to the art of refereeing, knowing what I was looking at and understanding the game, that's one thing. If I was being asked to look at a piece of technique, a Word document, and be able to work out how to open a Word document, close a Word document, write something, create formulas inside it, and produce a spreadsheet, I would say that would take me a small amount of time, and then I'd practice it and practice it and practice it over a 3 or 4 month period, so I knew precisely what I was doing, and I was incredibly proficient. This doesn't require proficiency.
I'm just saying
this is someone being diligent.
All right. I think it's a bit more involved than opening a Word document.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but I just think sacking is a bit too strong.
That's very kind of you.
Jim White and Simon Jordan. Monday to Friday mornings from 10 on AM, on DAB, via the talkSPORT app and on your smart speaker. talkSPORT.